YouTube, and it should be live on Facebook in a minute. If you're here, guys, we're gonna start in 5 minutes. We're just making sure we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Feel free to share on your own personal Facebook. So it's live on YouTube, and it should be live on.
I don't see it on Facebook.
Yeah, I don't know why.
That's just me.
Oh yeah, people are starting to come. Great. Hi, my friend Claude. Oh, nice. Okay, otherwise it's fine. Okay, fine. Okay, Facebook is not working. It's fine. We're gonna start. I see people are starting to come. There's already 50 participants joining, and basically we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait. There's like 70 people, and we'll start. Feel free to tell us where you're watching it from. I know some of you register from China, Japan, Vietnam, all over US. Hey, Jim, I think you're in New York. He was in my other webinar earlier. Claude, hi, New York as well, I think. Connecticut, great. Feel free to tell us New Jersey, Foley, where you're calling from, San Francisco, and what you're hoping to get from this inspirational webinar. Vietnam is in the house. Vietnam. Aruba, great. My Aruba people. Connecticut again. France, good. Got some French people here. Paris, illumination, I love it. New York, Paris, great. We're gonna wait a little bit, and then how you feeling, guys, before we start? Suki?
Good. Pretty good. Excited to be here. Yeah.
Donaline, how you feeling before we start?
Amazing. Grounded, excited, happy to share.
Great. Golden?
I'm truly excited. This is the first time I'm going to be speaking at a virtual event, so this is new for me, but I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Great. Rasana?
Grateful.
Grateful?
Very grateful. Thank you.
I'm really grateful to have you guys. I mean, you were some of the best speakers. Of course, we had our stage in New York in the 15 events I think we've done. You know, you came a couple times for most of you, did workshop with me. So we're gonna really have a great time. Thanks of all. Keep telling us, our auditor, where you're watching it from and what you hope to get from it. Nick from Wales, they're in the house. Keep letting us. Gillian, I think she's in New York, right? And then we'll start in about 5 minutes or so. And Cyprus, Malta, yeah, my friend from Malta is there. Malta is in the house. I'm telling you guys, we're gonna have all the country in the world. Love it. Okay, 52 people now. Okay, gonna wait. Anyway, people will join us as it goes. Make sure to close your phone, my panelists, to close your apps as well, your phones, your apps. We're going to record the session. We'll take the best. If the whole hour is great, we'll take the whole hours. Otherwise, we'll take 30 minutes of us. Brittany, great. Marc-Antoine from Paris, great. What else? Yes. Connecticut again, great. Benoit from Bordeaux, I believe. Inspires, because it's going to be inspired. Great, so let's start, let's not wait. Let's not wait. It's a very exciting event for me we're doing here. It's our 26th event, Stand Up for Passion, the first time online, the first virtual event. And it's special because it's COVID-19. It's special because it's truly international. All of you are from around the world. It's special because I have some of my best speaker, best friend from New York right here. All of you have a very, very different take on what's happening, but all a very inspiring take. And I know you will motivate people in your own right. I can't wait to see the feedback after this. I can't wait to see the feedback live, and especially when we transcribe to YouTube, to Facebook, to LinkedIn, and everywhere. For those of you that that can share it, feel free to still share it. Okay, 60 people. I think we're back. We're back in business. I love it. So I'm going to speak about resilience, reinvention, storytelling. Our friend Suki is going to speak on social connectedness, isolation, finding our own space, and how to increase our true nature through this whole ordeal. Golden has a new way of thinking. He's thinking it's time now to think result thinking. And you'll see it both as a parent and as a business guy. And Donalyn will take us in a spiritual dimension, telling us what is the dark night of the soul for those who don't know it yet, and what is it to expressing, to living it freely right now, and that we just have to embrace it, basically. And finally, with Rasan, I think be more of an interview style. That's what he wanted. But his main message is to live one day at a time. You'll see Rasana is a much more quiet, posed man than I am. He's much more, right? He's living in the moment, not as a crazy Frenchman like me. I'll start with my 3 points. Resilience for me is the name of the game. I've been doing a lot of work last few weeks on resilience. If there's one thing I'd like you to take out of all the work I've done is this. It was well said by a Captain Stockdale, American prisoner of war in Vietnam, spent 8 years in jail, and he's been tortured 50 times. And yet he came out not only alive, but thriving. And he said this very, very, very beautiful thing on resilience. It's for him, he said it's not to confuse two things. One is this idea that no matter what you're living, what you're going through, you will prevail, no matter what. So you have to do whatever it takes to build that confidence. Not to be confused with this ability every single day to step up into yourself with your own courage. So one thing is that vision, right? And the other thing is just daily courage. Day in, day out, what is it that you can do to go through the day? Reinvention, for me, there's 5 things we're going through when we are to reinvent ourselves, which it looks like at least 40 to 50% of the world people of the world are going to reinvent themselves. Mentally, financially, psychologically, in terms of relationship, you're gonna go through new layers of yourself just to step into your new person. So you're gonna have to reinvent yourself, right? All it takes for me is 5 points. I mean, I've changed 12 times in 7 countries, and I've helped 1,000 people to express the story of reinvention. So I'm fascinated by reinvention. One is the decision. You've got to commit to change, no matter what it takes. Commit. I'm telling you, when we left New York 6 months ago, to commit to coming to France, not so easy on everything. I mean, we just got our social security card. It took us 6 months. She had to leave her job, my wife. It was not an easy process. It took us 6 months to feel and now there's COVID-19, right? So it's never done. Discipline, you need to create that mental discipline. For some of us, maybe Suki, maybe Donalyn, it's more yoga. I'm not so much into yoga. For me, I need to be a very intense guy. It has to be boxing or running or swimming or weightlifting. To each his own. But what I'm sure is we need to build that mental discipline with the right amount of a sport, right amount of positive people around us. Then storytelling. Storytelling is the heart of this event, right? We've done it 25 times in 7 or 8 countries: Aruba, Toronto, Kathmandu, Tokyo, Casablanca, New York, Bordeaux, of course. And what is storytelling is to understand where you're coming from, where are those pivotal moments in your life that made you who you are. And we're not talking about your goals and purpose here. We're talking about why you are what you are now. And then purpose is later for me. It's a tremendous job, and all my speakers have done this work on their own purpose. You can go just to our YouTube channel youtube.com/standupforpassion. And then the final two thing on reinvention is to create your community, like we're doing that now, and your vision. Your vision, you need time alone, right? To build, I think, to build your next reinvention. No matter how big are the people supporting around you, they don't know you as well as you know yourself. So you need to be in that quiet space. And I know it's difficult right now. Suki will speak about how to find and create your own space in this crazy time where sometimes you live 5, 10 people in the same house. But you do need that. I would like to finish on the recommendation of, for me, which was one of the pivotal moments of my life, is when I read the book of Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. For me, the most important book ever. Again, he was in the camp, the guy survived because he has one goal. He wanted to be a witness of what's happening. And he wanted to tell people it's okay, you're gonna get through no matter how difficult it is. So if we take some perspective back, it's not so bad what we're living, right? We're not in camp. It's not so bad. So that was my take, right? It's resilience, it's storytelling, it's reinvention. Now, let's start with you, Suki. Are you on?
Yep, I'm on. I'm good.
Your take. Inspire my friends.
So meditation, and for people who know me, has been sort of my go-to for any challenges that I faced. And I follow Buddhist meditation practices. And one part of the Buddhist meditation practice, at the end, you're supposed to do this thing called dedication of merit. And what dedication of merit is basically everything, the effort that you have put into your meditation, whether sitting in a cushion for an hour or more, you're giving it all away. And quite frankly, when I started doing this practice, I was like, well, wait a second. I'm doing this for myself. Like, why am I giving it all away? And so I went to my meditation teacher and I said, I feel like a hypocrite. I feel like I'm lying to myself when I'm doing this and when I'm saying these words of, dedicating the merit. And she said to me, why don't you try a scientific experiment? Just let it go. Just one day, one practice, not every day, just one practice, let it go and see what happens. And so I said, okay, I can do that for one practice. And so the next day I sat down, and sincerely, that one practice, I did the dedication of merit with like my utmost sincerity, honestly. And the most amazing thing happened. Instead of that tightness that I felt this openness, like this spaciousness in my heart and this connection with everything around me and this peace and serenity. And, this is the whole reason why I do meditation, so I can get there. Yet I was holding it back because I was doing it for myself. A simple meditation practice seems like totally not interactive with anybody around us, but that just one simple practice, I was able to connect and find peace in myself. I feel like if there's one thing this pandemic is teaching us, it's the interdependence. It's a social connectedness of this, of all of us. I mean, this started as a small little bat in Wuhan got eaten by a human in some wet market, right? And now the entire globe is on its knees now with lockdowns. And I feel like if this doesn't teach us, the true nature of how we are, this interconnectedness of who we are and how the world is now, then I don't know what will. We're all in some kind of lockdown, whether that's in complete isolation and you really, really miss the people around you and really appreciating, and that comes to loneliness, fears, and all sort of anxieties, or you lack personal space because you're in lockdown with family members. I have a teenage 16-year-old sulky boy, a 9-year-old that will not stop disturbing me in every meeting that I have. Thank God he's not right now. But anyway, we're all facing our own challenges, whether it's an isolation or a lack of personal space. And through that, we're going through a lot of emotions like anger and frustration, anxiety, fear, and even greed, right? And greed really coming from the space of, I just don't have enough, what's going to happen, and like hoarding, right? That's causing a lot of social problems. But as humans, we actually have the capacity and the ability to use our minds, our discipline, our practices to conquer these ultimately counterproductive emotions. And I feel like the true solution to it all is really truly understanding the nature of humanity. We are connected. And I don't mean in some kind of woo-woo, like new agey kind of way. Let's face it, we are globally connected, whether we like it or not. And if we truly understand that truly understand the interdependent nature of our existence, the social connectedness of our existence, this naturally does lead to a compassion, a deep compassion of understanding, because we're all in this together. I'd like to make a point about the difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is the ability to feel what's going on. So like when I read the newspaper in the morning, you can't help but feel like for the healthcare workers and whatnot out there, sadness for those who've passed, people who are in isolation. There's a lot of empathy that I can feel. But the difference between empathy and compassion is compassion takes action. You feel the pain of others and you take action. Compassion to me is not some woo-woo new age nicety. It's actually a practical solution for all human challenges, both personal and societal. And certainly I feel in this pandemic. Anger with compassion leads to thoughtful action instead of doing things and saying things that you're going to regret. Compassion allows us to use fear, anxiety, and panic to help us get prepared, anticipate what's coming for ourselves and others. Compassion with greed, even desire, wanting things. If you have compassion tinged with that, then you're able to transform this desire for self-gain, sometimes at the expense of others, transform that into a positive social impact to the world. They say that character shows during times of crisis. Crisis really amplifies. I really feel like it really amplifies our true nature. Whatever is inside, whatever we're hiding, when we're in a crisis, when we're facing personal challenges, it all comes out, right? But ultimately, I feel like crisis gives an opportunity for us to shape our characters. This pandemic, in a way, not just for ourselves, for the whole world, it's an opportunity to shape our characters and the next stage of humanity. And it's my sincere hope that our new normal includes this awareness that I hopefully painfully we all now recognize, this interconnectedness, the social connectedness of our existence, and actions that are driven by some level of deep compassion. So that's my 2 cents on what's going on, and that's my insights. I hope that was helpful. Thank you, Arnaud, for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great. Love your take. I mean, so much thing to say. Feel free when I'll speak 2 minutes between each panelist to write your question now, so you don't forget. Even though we'll get to your question at the end, write it now, right? It's not so important when I'm speaking between the two of them. So take that time if you listen. Bravo. Luisa from New York, so bravo. Yes, I chose them. They're amazing people. Otherwise, they would not be here. My friend Golden, what do you think? What's your take on the world?
Well, to start, I just want to encourage everyone on this webinar to take a deep breath. Because right now we are in crisis mode, and it's just a lot. It's very heavy. It's a heavy burden for a lot of us. So let's also take a moment of silence for those affected by this pandemic. So, Coach, by the way, I call you Coach. I don't know if everyone knows our relationship. We go back many, many, many years. You discovered me as a speaker over 6 or 7 years ago in New York City, when I didn't even know I had the ability to share my story. And Stand Up for Passion has given me the platform to be able to do that. So when you invited me to be a part of this, obviously I was very honored to partake.
Thank you.
So my views right now on what's currently going on is we have to stay focused on the fundamentals. We have to stay focused on the fundamentals. When we wake up every single day, in a normal society, we're able to dive into our day and go out and get things done. But now we're on lockdown. So the things that we were getting done on a daily basis, it seems like it was put on pause. But in all actuality, is it put on pause, or can we do it during the lockdown? So for example, with myself, I work out every day. I read every day. I, love to meditate every single day. And these are things that I can do on my own, in my home. And that's something that I've been really focusing on, just not cutting my rituals, So I think that's something that I want everyone to really concentrate on, where sometimes you can get into a funk. You say, you know what, the gym is closed, so I'm not going to work out anymore. You know what, my favorite restaurant is closed, so I'm not going to eat healthy anymore. And you just start getting into this funk. And I would say, don't allow yourself during this time to get into that hole, because in reality, if you go down that hole, it's going to be very hard to climb out when we reopen. And I think that, sticking to the fundamentals is going to allow you to do that. And also, I was thinking about what you and I spoke about, Coach, about, reframing my mindset. And for the past 10 years, I've been doing my life's work, which I thought was my life's work, right? And I've been building a company called Get Focused. A lot of the people on this call know about my efforts with Get Focused. And for many years, I was just so entrenched in doing the work that I never thought about the actual impact of the work. And what I mean by that is, if I did a food drive, I would say, okay, I raised 5,000 cans of food for the less fortunate, and we distributed 5,000 cans of food. And I would stop there, and I'll say, wow, we did great work. We did great work. And I would never take it further and say, okay, what was the actual impact on that? How many people actually consumed the food? How many people actually started living a healthy lifestyle after that moment, right? And that's something that I've never thought about. I was so focused on the work and not the actual results and the outcome. And I think that's something that, business-wise, again, now I'm talking about business-wise, it's what I'm focused on as a business leader now. It's examples like, my organization would tutor 200 kids, per month. And we would have dozens of tutors, and they would be reading coaches and fitness coaches, and they would do, let's say, over 100 hours of tutoring and coaching a month. And I was focused on that. Wow, we are doing 100 hours of coaching a month. But I never thought about the actual outcome and results of that. Are these kids actually, getting better grades? Are they actually changing their lifestyle? So that's something that I've been focused on, and I want to encourage everyone on this call to start really thinking about the outcomes and results of your actions and of your decisions. And that's what I want to speak about business-wise. And then finally, I just want to give a special shout out to my partner, Linda, who's on this call, and to our beautiful son, Lucas, who many people are asking about in the comments. Lucas is now going on 4 years old. He's enrolled in a Montessori style school, and he's already on the path to being, a bright young man. And we're very excited about that. And fatherhood has changed my life. Fatherhood has changed my life. It's something that I cherish, and something that I take great pride in. And everything I'm speaking about, I'm going to try to pass it on to him. So thank you for this opportunity, Coach. And I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, Golding. Thank you so much for your time. Feel free to write your question now. While Donaling is ready, maybe keep in mind that Eric, one of our auditors, is thinking, what are the 3 major lessons that you've learned from this very unique period? Think of it for after the call. We'll do on a general question and answer after the thing. Right? Start to think. Someone else was asking. No, but the book that was answered. Okay, the other question was answered. All right, Donaline, go. How's the spiritual world going? How is it? What's the weather like in the spiritual things there?
So for me, I would definitely say that this is the next shift in human evolution. Welcome to Homo Sanctus. So we all know there's been periods of human evolution on our planet. We've gone from Homo habilis to Homo erectus to Homo neanderthalis to Homo sapien. And now this is Homo Sanctus. And so We knew when the Mayan calendar ended on December 21st, 2012, that was a new age, a new period. Now, the Mayans were really good because the Mayans were such an advanced society, I mean, much more advanced than we are. And they were so advanced that they had this thing where they charted cycles of time and periods of evolution. And they did it with planets and they did it with humans. So they did it for the sun, they did it for the moon, and they did it for Earth, but they also did it for humanity. And so they knew that a great period was ending on December 21st, 2012. And then on December 22nd, 2012, we would ease into a transitional period, into a new age, a new era, a new period of evolution, right? It was going to be the next stage for us. And so why is it? Why was it going to be? Why did they know? How did they know this was the next shift in evolution? Because everything in our universe evolves. Everything changes. Stars evolve, planets evolve, humans evolve. Now we have seen the evolution of humanity, and our planet right now is undergoing a huge evolutionary shift. And you know that because once every 26,000 years, our planet evolves itself around its own axis. Now, when it does that, it's a major shift, right? And so there's so much seismic activity and so many tectonic plate shifts. So you see earthquakes, you see volcanoes, you see fires, you see floods, you see tsunamis, right? We're seeing all of this now. Think back to the Ice Age. That was a perfect example of what we call the precision of the equinoxes. This is a shift in the planet itself every 26,000 years. And so we're going through this period now. We're seeing the same shifts on our planet right now, and we call it climate change. It is not climate change. Trust me, I'm a huge proponent of climate change. Humans have got to change our behavior because we are destroying our planet, because we are selfish and we need to accept responsibility for that. But this is not climate change. This is the natural evolutionary progress of a planet. This is how it works. Now, and we're on the planet. So we shift as well. And so not only is it the precision of the equinoxes that the planet is working with, but it's also the fact that our planet is shifting its position in the cosmos. Did you know that? It's shifting marginal degrees, just from a third dimension, just like this, into a fifth dimension. It's very subtle, but it is huge because we're shifting dimensions. We're moving up in dimensions, we're moving up in vibration, we're moving up in frequency. And because the planet is moving up, because we're on the planet, we're evolving as well. And that's really important to remember, because then you think, okay, well, what's the next phase of human evolution? What's it going to look like? You know, it's not necessarily physical. I'm not going to grow wings and all of a sudden start flying. It doesn't work that way. It is the next evolutionary step in consciousness. We're raising our frequency, we're raising our vibration, right? And this has been coming for a while. I knew about this for the last 10 years. Nobody knew exactly when it was going to happen because, like I said, we're in a transition. We're not fully in this new age yet, which is called the Aquarian Age, the Golden Age, the Age of Enlightenment. We're in a transition, which is why it's rocky and a little uncomfortable. So nobody knew when it was really going to hit in, but it's starting now. And so I told all my clients that this vibrational shift of moving from a third dimension to a fifth dimension, most of it started in 2019, pretty hard. So I said to all of them, you know, whatever relationship or job or venture of yours that cannot hold the higher vibration of where we're headed has to fall apart. It has to, because it needs to be rebuilt anew. And so in 2019, we saw a lot of personal disaster, a lot of dark night of the soul for people on a micro level, individual level. But in 2020, it continues. And now we're seeing it on a macro level. We're seeing our political systems collapse because any system or process or protocol that cannot hold the higher vibration of where we're going needs to fall apart so we can rebuild. Right? And so I'm a numerologist, and this is what I do. I decode people for a living, and I decode situations. And so this year is a 4 year. It's 2020. And so a 4 is all about rebuilding and building a new foundation that looks different from the foundation we came from. This is very important. And it has to be done one step at a time, Can't skip steps with this. And so basically this age of Aquarius, or however you want to call it, the golden age, it's an age of awakening. They call it the great age of awakening. Richard Rudd, who writes the Gene Keys, calls it the great change. And so it's characterized as any great awakening is characterized. Whenever you go through your own personal dark night of the soul, you lose a job, you lose a relationship, you lose a loved one, you go bankrupt. Whenever this happens in a person's life, they hit rock bottom and then they transform. They have an awakening, right? And it's like overnight. And it shifts them and it changes them and they'll never go back. They become different. It's an evolution of the soul from a dark night. And so the best example I can give for a dark night of the soul and a great awakening, I always tell the story of Scrooge, right? Charles Dickens' Scrooge. In one night, he has the darkest night of the soul. He's visited by the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. And in one night, he sees the darkness and he sees everything he doesn't like about himself and everything he knows he needs to shift. And in the morning, there's a great awakening. He awakens and he is different. He makes change. He's evolved. One night, he has this great awakening born out of a dark night of the soul. So this virus, this is our dark night of the soul collectively. But we still first have to go within, and we still first have to look at all our own personal shadows. They have to be transformed or we can't evolve. And within our own shadows is the ancestral shadows that we carry from our family. And then the collective shadows. These all need to be transmuted so we can evolve. So we're all, this isolation period, this quarantine is not isolation, it's incubation. So we can go within and we can face our own shadows. And once we face our own shadows, we can transform them. And when one of us, just one of us, raises our vibration and pulls ourselves up with light, we pull up the humanity with light. And then all of that evolution, all that light will pull up the planet. So the planet doesn't have to do this evolution by itself. That's why most of us are still asleep. We're not even facing our own shadows. We're not doing the work on ourselves. We're forcing the planet to do all the work itself. And that's why you're seeing all this seismic activity and all these tectonic plate shifts. And we saw on February 4th, one meditation, 1 billion people around the planet came together. And for a few hours, we held space for the planet. We drew so much light into the planet that the Schumann resonance went from 7.8 hertz to over 70 hertz. That was so much light. When one of us raises our vibration because we face our shadows, then we collectively pull up humanity, and then we help the planet, and everyone evolves. So this, to me, is the next step in human evolution. It is our birthright. And it's all about how we personally decide to go about it. That's what I would say.
Oh, no, you're mute.
Look, Coach, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, I'm
I
good.
wasn't on mute.
Oh, you were not on mute, don't worry.
I was like, I was on mute.
That was amazing. That was amazing, Donnelly.
I laughed because I kept putting myself on mute because the cat was making noise. And I was like, did I put myself on mute?
You're not on mute at all. No, it was great.
Great job.
For sharing it. Someone just said some comment while you were speaking. And then we're going to go to Rasana, where he's a former Wall Street trader turned monk, turned leadership coach. Yeah, just people say, thank you, great. That was amazing, Steph Chikowski, to you. Amazing, Donaline, Gillian. Gillian who's been to many of our events. I think, yes, some political question we might go after. Humankind, I love Claude. I love the precision of the equinox. We'll answer some of those global or individual questions at the end, but I'd like to get to you, my spiritual friend who spent 5 years as a monk, and now you're back in the, I don't know what's the real world, right? Is the monk the real world? Is the real world where we met monk? I'm not even sure how I found you the first time. I think someone sent me an article, I think, on you, and that's how we get to know each other. What's your take? So let me know, and especially your thing. Let's just living one day at a time.
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be with all of you. Really appreciate this gathering, Sangha, this community. It has been a roller coaster for me through this entire experience. And what I recognized through that was that this is a period where I need to learn how to carry my suffering with dignity, because I find myself typically responding to suffering either from a place of bravado or from a place of panic. And what I recognized was, as this pandemic started and getting to know about everything that people were experiencing, and also then facing my own personal fears, health-wise, financial security-wise, the collective health of the family. It was definitely a roller coaster ride. And I found myself reacting in ways to people that was transmitting my own suffering and making things even worse. So what I recognized was the best thing I can do to serve was to learn how to walk this period one day at a time, and learning how to walk this suffering with dignity, not trying to predict its end, not trying to make a conclusion of what it will be like when we are outside, when we come out, because I do not know. But what I can say in all honesty is I have a desire to stop my own suffering from being transmitted and take full responsibility for that. And so the best way I can see myself doing it is by taking one day at a time and asking myself the question, well, what suffering am I experiencing today? And what is the best way that I can respond to it today? And then live the next day the same way. Until hopefully organically, when all of this is behind us, the new world, the new normal, will be a result of the transformation of that suffering, instead of transmitting of that suffering. Because what doesn't get transformed will get transmitted. As Suki was saying, we are all connected. And when we are connected, we either we can distribute suffering or we can distribute happiness. The best way to be able to do that is to take full responsibility for what I carry and learn how to walk that with dignity and honesty. That's my resolution.
And how's your spiritual past as a monk help you to this day? Because what's interesting is to see that, you know, even with your, let's say, training in spirituality, you're still going through that sort of emotion and it's triggering you, and you, as you say, you're just afraid to transmit that. And I do remember the first time not the first time I spoke to you, but when I was preparing you one time for you to be on stage, I was in LA at the time and talked to you on the phone and I asked you this question, which is, you know, basically, when do you know you're okay, or what's happening when you're becoming about, you know, maybe not a spiritual master, but better. And you told me this sentence, and I still remember where I was seated in which apartment in LA when I heard you say, well, the only difference is you just become more aware of your darkness, of what's wrong with you. You just know exactly what it is, compared to someone where you say, there might be something fucked up with me, but you know exactly what's fucked up, right? Which was, I was like, wow, it's fascinating. And listening to you is, and I went through the same thing lately as well. I was like, my God, even with all my training and reinvention and resilience, I'm also going through some emotional roller coaster from some days as well here. So all of us, but would you say something else in your past as a monk that is helping you day to day and that everyone could take?
Absolutely. So the idea of becoming a monk or becoming a spiritual person, somehow we have a sense that things will be, you know, and there's peace ever after. And what I learned as a monk, so the reason, or one of my illusions of becoming a monk was, so I was a banker before that, and I realized that I want to live in a world
as every monk, as every monk does.
Thank you. there is, I'm just going to move into a world where there's no ego. Now, what is interesting is I experienced my own and the egos of other people in a monastery, and it did cause suffering too. What we collectively recognized was becoming spiritual, while the idea is glamorous, the process is not. And so many of us want the result without the process, right? That's, we live in an age of fast food, microwaves, high-speed internet. And somehow there is this notion that, well, spirituality has to be handed to me. And when I become spiritual, I'll be this Zen-like person. Now, what's interesting is that in my conversations with people who are very spiritually elevated, they don't necessarily, they don't suffer less. This is what happens. They know how to transform it. They know how to hold it. And they have the capacity to not let their suffering leak onto other people. Right? And in that process, they find the redemption. And they have just become good at doing that repeatedly. Right. So this is the lesson that I learned. I guess I had to, my naivete of becoming a monk had to break in order to actually come to a place to embrace the spiritual process means to be a warrior.
Thanks.
Every single moment.
Right. I'm going to ask you one last personal question, and then it's going to be a few global questions for all of you four here. What do you think what's happening now is going to change in your process of coaching people? All of us here on the panel are coach in some way or another. How it's going to transform, evolve your way of coaching people one-to-one or in groups?
Such a good question, because I find it actually is happening as we speak. I'm actually spending more time in helping people understand very directly how they're not their minds, and how they're not their emotions, and how they're not their egos, but a spark of consciousness that is actually completely pure and is untouched by any amount of upheaval that happens around. When you talked about resiliency, the real resiliency is the resiliency of that consciousness, that soul, that spark, that is actually completely untouched by anything material. And the one thing that I'm doing in my coaching is to speak more about that, and to, in small ways, help people experience how they're not their minds, not their emotions, but something much, much deeper, to spark of pure consciousness that we all have access to, but in our busyness, we actually run away from that. Okay. So that's how, very directly, that's how it has transformed my own coaching process.
Thank you. Well, quite deep and profound as always. Thank you so much. Golden, there was a question for you. So when you spoke of reframing, Golden, your outlook and making sure you focus on results, what would be some ways I can apply that on the day-to-day towards my business?
Well, towards your business, well, again, it's all subjective, right? It all depends what business, an individual is in. But, using my business as an example, I have a youth organization called Get Focused that I spend every single day thinking about the kids that we serve. And what I do is I look at where they are in as soon as they enter the program. And then what I do is I design a plan for them. So I have a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month plan. And then in that plan, there's milestones and objectives and action plans that I put together based on their current situation, and based on their current skill set and things like that. I tailor a program just for them to be able to achieve the results that they need. So I guess those same principles can be applied to basically almost any individual. You can design your own personal plan. Like for myself, I'm constantly, I have so many calendars and motivational quotes and all this that I'm surrounding with, and I'm constantly writing down my objectives. Like for example, last year I wrote down on a. It's funny, I might be able to find it, but you know, I wrote down on a blackboard. I wrote down I'm going to save $100,000 to buy my first investment property, and just simply writing that down. A year ago, I literally closed on my first investment property in February, and I bought a multifamily unit in Newark, New Jersey, and I'm having trouble renting it out now because of obviously the pandemic, but it's still something that I'm very proud of, and it came from just simply writing down, you know, my goal and being able to see it every single day. I would wake up and I would literally see it every single day. So, you know, some of us forget how powerful it is to just to simply write down your goals and put it up and see it. I know that a lot of my family this past New Year's, we did vision boards, and I have an aunt who on the vision board, she put that she wanted her husband to get a job at a amazing company, and as soon as she put it on her vision board, a month later that company was calling him, headhunting him. It was incredible, you know. And so I guess that's my advice for people, you know, just, you know, get into that mindset, you know.
Thanks. Donaline, I think there's a question you could answer. It's to everyone, but I think you might have a great take. Rodney is asking us, for folks who are new to spiritual process, and many are, how do you suggest to begin? Where? What first step?
Yeah, you're muted.
Now I was muted. So I think personally, this quarantine was the biggest beautiful gift. This was our dark night of the soul, the virus, right? There's the fear of what the virus means. And so the going in at the beginning, all of us were feeling really trapped and we're in isolation, but to use it as an incubation, to use this time, don't waste this time. Spirituality 101 is to go within yourself. We're all trying to connect to our higher selves, to something higher now. And so the only way to do that is to get still within yourself. And I say, look at your shadows. So I've told everybody during this quarantine, whomever you're with is purposeful. Wherever you ended up and whomever you're with is exactly the way it's supposed to be. You've got a soul contract there. So watch your triggers, watch what comes up for you, right? And so, because those are going to be your buttons, and that's a beautiful entry level into spirituality, to look at what our issues are, whatever comes up. So during this time, I've had clients who are in relationships and they're in bad relationships and they're quarantined together, and so their buttons are getting pushed. My brother, for example, he went to see my mom. He was in California. He went to see my mom right before the lockdown happened because she had a surgery. He got stuck there. And I was supposed to go after him. So his work, he has a lot of karmic issues with her. So all his issues come up right there in his face in quarantine. He has to work on them. So wherever you are is purposeful, and whatever's coming up for you is purposeful. And that's a beautiful way to start on the path of spirituality, by looking at your shadows and learning to transmute them. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Suki. I always like to bring you know, everything you can from around the world. I mean, we look at this diverse panel with all of you, bring so much diversity to in terms of culture, of where you come from, or your ancestors, or whatever. What do you think the Eastern world has to teach us, Suki? I know you were teaching at some point Feng Shui. You had some Feng Shui class, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think we can learn from the Eastern world in this time?
I think that there's definitely cultural differences between the East and the West of how this is being dealt with. I mean, I come from Korea, and I think Korea is lauded as one of those countries that be able to get this pandemic under control fairly quickly. I think they have now 0 new cases or single-digit new cases happening, you know, in the past week or so. One thing that I feel, it's going back to my point of social connectedness, like community and a respect for the community. Like the biggest example that I see is mask wearing. You know, in mask wearing, you know, one way of looking at it is you're actually preventing yourself from giving the disease to others, but also, you know, getting it also from others. I mean, when the Western world was told, well, it doesn't protect you against anybody else, and the kind of thought was, well, then why am I wearing it? Because it's not effective. So I think that, you know, in the East, there's a kind of underlying cultural expectation of always looking at the good of the whole community beyond the individual. And I think that, you know, having grown up in an Asian culture and having to come to West and having to tout my own horn, there was definitely a sort of an inner struggle. But I see that in times like this, that, you know, putting the community first, not necessarily at the expense, because at the end of the day, when you do put the community first, you win. You win at the end of the game. Now, you know, people in Korea are going back to work. But I think like right now, this pandemic is clearly showing when you do act really selfishly, it results in not only, you know, not the best results for yourself, but also the community, you know, the society as a whole. So that is what I see the biggest difference between Eastern and Western approach internally as well as societally to this what's going on.
Thank you. We have thank you. We have so much different comment. Eric would say that's what I miss about Asia, especially in Japan, the respectful attitude. I mean, you spoke about Korea, I'm speaking about Japan, but the same sort of philosophy, respectful attitude.
Yeah.
Amina from Vietnam, she say, for collective renewal to truly elevate, I've always felt we must not attach to being unattached. But I enjoyed the description of holding our own suffering during this time, so it does not transmit that the egoic state of dignity and responsibility is important to employ today if we are to support each other. There was a question from for you, Rasana, sort of a deep question. Someone said, with the rate of domestic violence increase, it's all over the world. It's in, you know, it's in France, it's in the US, across the world, with this pandemic, people staying home, right? Basically, what you have to say about this, they say, please share in practical terms how that level of suffering in the abuser and perhaps the abused can be transmuted, carried with dignity, love, not violence. Maybe if you have a, you know, without going too much in details, a deep philosophical, profound question, but just your own take on this. Just we answer that person.
It's again, it takes a it will take a while to actually really unpack this, but very quickly, it feels unfair that when you are on the side that is abused, when you're asked to take the responsibility of the suffering coming from an abuser. It feels very unfair. But to ask an abuser to take responsibility for suffering is hard, because if they did, or if they could, they would not be doing what they're doing right now. But what's important is, and this is where it's hard to say this, but the initiative comes to the person who actually is experiencing the suffering to say, you know what, I'm suffering, but I am not going to transmit it. And that may look like distancing myself from the abuser, even if the relationship seems to be pretty close. It may look like distancing myself from the abuser, or asking myself the question, well, why am I still staying with this person? What is my own suffering that I'm actually not trying to face by living in this relationship, right? So the buck stops with us. We have to ask ourselves the question, how am I going to prevent this from not transmitting? And the responsibility lies with the individual. And the only other thing that I want to say add there is, do not ask yourself, is this fair? Because it's not, right? But we have to rise above the conception of fairness in order to take full responsibility and stop the suffering from moving forward. I don't know if that was practical enough, but that's the best I could do.
I invite you to get in contact with Rasana if you want to. It's such a huge topic, of course. I mean, I'm seeing across the board those problems. What I'm saying, I don't know what I'd like to get your take and maybe just 1 minute on each of them, because we're gonna close it in 5-10 minutes. What's your take on those people who seems to be totally remote from what's happening? I mean, I'm talking 90% of people understand, and there's a new consciousness. Some people, I'm taking my neighbor who has no idea I'm doing this webinar, you know, He's a financial director of a good company in Bordeaux. His wife is a doctor, but you have no idea the level of suffering it's happening, the level of a bankruptcy. I'm talking, he was like, oh, it's going to go back to normal. It's going to be fine. Some people seems to be the, hello, you have no idea. I've heard some French and American businessmen as well, some French business, American businessmen, oh, we just have to go back to business and sell as much as possible. We're just going to have to go back to business and make people work as hard as possible so we can go back on the economic term. What do you have to say to those people? They're probably not watching the webinar, that's for sure. But why do you think it even happens, and what do you have to say about this? Just a very concise answer. Prasanna, let's start with you. You're here.
Let them wake up when they need to. Let me work with people who are wanting to change.
Okay, great. Thanks. Gordon?
Well, I agree with Razanav. I feel that we need to surround ourselves with like-minded individuals who want to approach the new world in similar ways that we want to approach the new world. So, you know, if the people who are thinking like that are, I'm sure just, you know, want to bounce back from the losses and the suffering that they've endured during this time, and when the world opens up, they want to just attack it. I think that we need to kind of slow down a bit and just surround ourselves with people who are going to work at our pace.
Yeah. Thank you. Denali?
This is an awakening period. People have a choice. They either awaken or they don't.
Suki, you mute, by the way. You mute, Suki.
Sorry about that. My take is that we just need to lead by example. We can't force upon others, but basically if they see the change in us, hopefully our vibrations, you know, the impact that we make in the world will make a difference, and they'll see and they'll come to their own terms. That's my take on it.
Thank you. I'm going to do one round, last piece of advice you feel people need, or you want to give, or one word, one last thing you want to say, anything. Suki, let's start by you.
Can I say 2 words? I mean, I said it over and over again, social connectedness and compassion. Just really understand the concept of that.
Thank you. Denali?
This is your own personal dark night of the soul to be transformed for yourself.
Golden?
Unity. I'm going to use that word. I have a lot of friends and family on this call, and it feels good to be a unified front with them and everyone else. Thank you for joining this call from around the world. This is probably the most unified I've felt during this whole pandemic. So for me, unity is the word.
Thank you. Prasanna?
Relentless personal responsibility.
Wow. Can you say it again? Because with my accent.
I said a relentless personal responsibility.
I love it. I have to write it down. I can say it. Nobody's going to understand. French accent. Donalyn told me a few days ago, it's coming back big time, my French accent. Lots of people are saying thank you, Donalyn, Suki, Golden, everyone's been thanks. So thank you also to our editor from around the world. Thank you to you guys. I mean, it was very important for us to do this call, this community. You know how much I love each and every one of you. You give so much to the planet. So let's keep doing our best. Let's live our best. Let's reinvent. Let's find that resilience. Let's keep inspire people. Let's find more impact. Thank you, Amina from Vietnam, who loved it. I know you'll be on the panel when we get to Vietnam one day. Oh, another virtual panel. My friend Georgina as well in LA. I want you on Stand Up for Passion stage one day. It'd be great. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you. And this will be recorded. We'll get the best, and I'll send you the link to everyone that wants to see. We'll send it on our social network. Thank you so much, all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Arno. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Coach.
everybody.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.